Way out in California, a family bright and gay were planning for their Christmas not very far away. They had a little daughter, a sweet and pretty child, and all the folks who knew her loved Marion Parker's smile. She left her home one morning for school not far away, and no one dreamed that danger could come to her that day.
The song you hear is the Ballad of Marion Parker, a melody tied to one of the darkest chapters in Los Angeles history in 1927. Today, on 50 States of Mystery with me, your host, Nigel Foxworthy, we journey back December 1927 to revisit the chilling story of a young girl's tragic fate. Welcome, friends, as we delve into the case of Marion Parker, a 12-year-old child whose life was taken by a troubled and twisted young man. It all began on a seemingly normal day, Thursday, December 15th, 1927, at Mount Vernon Junior High School in Los Angeles. The festive air was alive with holiday excitement. A man walked into the school, posing as Mr. Cooper, an employee from the First National Bank. He claimed that Perry Parker, a senior employee at the bank and Marion's father, had been in a terrible accident. He was there, he said, to bring Parker's younger daughter to him. The school secretary, uncertain but trusting, allowed Marion to leave with him. Little did anyone know that this would be the last time she was seen alive. Soon after, strange telegrams arrived for her father, demanding ransom money in exchange for his daughter's safe return, and warning him not to involve the police. For days, Perry Parker complied, hoping he could rescue his beloved child. But each attempt to deliver the ransom was met with heartbreak and dread. Soon after the abduction, chilling ransom notes began to arrive. One note, signed by the kidnapper, read, "PM Parker. Fox is my name. Very sly, you know. Set no traps. I'll watch for them. Get this straight. Remember that life hangs by a thread, and I have Gillette, razor, ready and able to handle the situation. Do you want the girl or the $75-20 gold certificates, US currency? You can't have both, and there's no other way out. Believe this and act accordingly. Before the day's over, I'll find out where you stand. I'm doing a solo, so figure on meeting the terms of Mr. Fox, or else. Fate." Adding to the horror, the kidnapper sent another message, this time written in Marion's own hand. "Please, Daddy, I want to come home this morning. This is your last chance. Be sure and come by yourself, or you won't see me again. Marion." These words echoed the desperation and fear that filled the Parker household. Yet Perry continued to follow each instruction, hoping to reunite with his daughter, but each step closer revealed a man bent on horror. Following the kidnapper's instructions, Parker met with the man on December 17th in central Los Angeles, carrying the ransom money. In the brief exchange, the stranger handed Parker what he claimed was his sleeping daughter before quickly driving off. As Parker approached, he found that what he'd been given was his daughter's body, lifeless and mutilated. The killer had not only taken her life but had disfigured her horribly. Her limbs had been severed, her eyes cruelly wired open, her abdomen filled with rags. Later, her dismembered limbs would be discovered in Elysian Park, casting a shadow of horror over the city. The crime sent shockwaves across the nation. The Los Angeles Times and other major newspapers called for justice, while law enforcement mobilized in one of the largest manhunts in Southern California history. Clues soon led authorities to a young man named William Edward Hickman, a former co-worker of Perry Parker's, who had developed an obsession with crime. Hickman, despite his baby-faced appearance, had a criminal record that included a string of robberies and a fascination with violence. William Edward Hickman, born on February 1st, 1908 in Kansas City, Missouri, came from a troubled background. He grew up in a fractured family marked by mental illness and instability. His early life was split between Arkansas and Kansas, and he was raised primarily by his mother after his father left the family. Hickman was known for his intelligence and charm and excelled academically, even winning recognition as best boy orator in high school. However, by his senior year, he had begun to show signs of a darker side, abruptly abandoning his promising academic path. By 1926, at the age of 18, Hickman moved to California, where he began living with his friend, Welby Hunt, and Hunt's grandparents in Alhambra, a small city near Los Angeles. During this time, Hickman and Hunt engaged in petty crimes and began a spree of robberies that hinted at Hickman's capacity for violence. Soon, Hickman's criminal tendencies escalated. He was involved in a string of carjackings, thefts, and violent incidents across the Midwest before returning to Los Angeles. It was there, while working briefly as a page at First National Bank, that Hickman encountered Perry Parker. At the time he murdered young Marion Parker, he was only 19 years old. Tracked through sightings in Albany, Portland, and Seattle, Hickman was eventually captured in Echo, Oregon, on December 22nd. He was carrying some of the gold certificates he had received as ransom, using them to pay for his travels. Upon arrest, Hickman made a written confession detailing how he had strangled Marion, dismembered her, and staged her body in a horrific attempt to appear lifelike. After abducting young Marion Parker from her school, William Edward Hickman took her to his rented room at the Bellevue Arms Apartments, a recently opened building in Los Angeles. It was here, in the confines of his apartment, that Hickman committed the brutal crime that shocked the nation. He later confessed that he had strangled Marion in his apartment, dismembering her in a horrific attempt to cover up his actions. When asked why he killed Marion, Hickman's response was as chilling as it was detached. He claimed he feared she might make noise, which could alert others and jeopardize his ransom plan. Later, he admitted that he had become tired of finding her in the room, and that her presence began to annoy him, pushing him into what he described as a frenzy. These statements revealed Hickman's cold and calculating nature, as he showed no remorse for his actions and instead seemed more concerned with his own convenience. His lack of empathy shocked even the most seasoned law enforcement officials, leaving an indelible mark on the public's memory of this tragic case. The trial of William Edward Hickman for the kidnapping and murder of Marion Parker began on January 25th, 1928, just a month after his arrest, and quickly became one of the most sensationalized trials in California's history. Every detail of the case gripped the public, and crowds gathered outside the courthouse daily, desperate to catch a glimpse of the young man behind one of the most heinous crimes of the decade. Newspapers across the nation covered the proceedings, which lasted for nearly 3 weeks, bringing forward disturbing details of Hickman's behavior, both during and after the crime. Hickman's defense centered around an insanity plea, a legal strategy only recently sanctioned in California. His attorneys argued that he was driven by voices he called Providence, who, he claimed, commanded him to kidnap and kill Marion. Hickman himself played into this plea, often shifting from rational responses to strange, disjointed statements in the courtroom. He would occasionally act erratically, claiming he was not in control of his actions, yet at other times appeared calm and composed. Hickman also presented a document he called The Solution of Crime, a rambling tract in which he tried to persuade the court to spare his life, claiming he could benefit humanity if allowed to live. The prosecution, however, painted a very different picture. District Attorney Asa Keyes emphasized Hickman's calculated actions, from his careful planning of the kidnapping to his efforts to evade capture. Witnesses, including his former co-workers and acquaintances, testified to Hickman's erratic but controlled behavior. Casting doubt on the insanity plea, Keyes also highlighted Hickman's chilling confession in which he explained how he had staged Marion's body to make it appear lifelike, all in a final attempt to secure the ransom money. The jury was horrified by the cold, methodical nature of Hickman's actions and by his callous indifference to the suffering he had caused. After nearly 3 weeks of testimony and arguments, the jury reached a unanimous decision. On February 9th, 1928, William Edward Hickman was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. The defense team immediately filed an appeal, but it was quickly denied, sealing Hickman's fate. The public, which had followed every twist and turn of the case, felt a mixture of relief and horror at the outcome. Hickman was sent to San Quentin State Prison, where he awaited execution. In the months leading up to his execution, Hickman continued to captivate public attention, often writing letters to the press and even converting to Catholicism in his final days. His demeanor remained unpredictable, at times contrite and at other times disturbingly detached. On October 19, 1928, William Edward Hickman was hanged at San Quentin, bringing an end to a case that had haunted Los Angeles and the entire nation. The trial and its outcome had a lasting impact, influencing public opinion on crime and punishment and solidifying Marion Parker's tragic story as one of the most infamous crimes in American history. The aftermath of Marion Parker's tragic murder left deep, lasting scars on her family. Perry Parker, her father, was devastated by the loss, carrying the unbearable guilt of unwittingly paying the ransom to her killer. A respected bank employee, Perry had led a life devoted to his family, but after Marion's death, he was forever haunted by the memory of his daughter's suffering. The trauma took a toll on his health, and he withdrew from public life, grappling with profound grief and guilt that would never fully heal. Marion's mother, Geraldine Parker, endured the crushing sorrow of losing a child in such a horrific way. She became reclusive, avoiding the public eye and struggling with the overwhelming heartbreak of her family's ordeal. Marion's twin sister Marjorie was also deeply affected by the tragedy. Though young, Marjorie was old enough to understand the depth of her loss, and she grew up shadowed by the painful memory of her sister's tragic fate. For the Parkers, life would never be the same, and the legacy of Marion's life and death lingered in their hearts and minds for the rest of their lives. Marion Parker's story remains one of the most harrowing crimes of the 20th century, a tale that exposed the darker sides of human nature and left an indelible mark on American history. The shocking nature of her kidnapping and murder prompted the public to reconsider issues of child safety, leading schools to adopt stricter policies to protect children from similar threats. The trial of William Edward Hickman revealed the terrifying disconnect between outward charm and hidden malevolence, and it introduced a nationwide conversation about mental health, responsibility, and the limitations of the insanity defense. Today, nearly a century later, Marion's story serves as both a cautionary tale and a painful reminder of innocence lost. It's a story that speaks to the importance of vigilance, remembering those affected by such tragedies, and striving for a society that values and protects its most vulnerable. Thank you for joining me, Nigel Foxworthy, here on 50 States of Mystery. Be sure to like, subscribe, and continue exploring with us as we uncover more mysteries across America. Keep looking for those hidden stories and stay curious. There's always more to discover in the shadows of our past.
Marion Parker, away from friends and home.